Hello, my astrology friends and family. This is Lada from AstroLada.com. We continue the 2022 astrology marathon, and you can watch all the videos, all the 12 signs from the astrology marathon on Lada Doncheva YouTube from the playlist called Yearly Astrology, yearly predictions, something like that. And we continue today with the sign of Gemini and one of your favorite astrologers that everyone is raving about from Australia. It's Cailin. She totally blows me away with her predictions. I'm so fascinated by her and her skills. So hello, Cailin. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Lada. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's a real pleasure. And I'm a Gemini rising as well. So I always get very, very excited when I'm preparing the Gemini horoscope. Now, before I get into the Gemini horoscope today, I just wanted to touch on the main events for 2022. So even if you're not a Gemini, you can still watch the whole horoscope, obviously, but especially this part because this will apply to everyone. So the main events for 2022 will be the Venus and Mars conjunction with Pluto at 27 degrees Capricorn. Obviously, we're already going to have two conjunctions between Venus and Pluto in December. So that will be the third and final one for Venus. Now, another exciting event that we're going to have will be the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction in Pisces. Now, this conjunction only occurs every 13 years, but we're not going to see it again in the sign of Pisces in this lifetime. So, this will give it a very special Piscean flavor because obviously this conjunction involves both of Pisces rulers. Now, the other events that I'm going to cover today will be the Uranus and North Node conjunction in Taurus, featuring Mars, and of course, Mars being retrograde in Gemini, and we're going to see Jupiter spending some time in Aries, which is very exciting. Now, I just wanted to share my personal thoughts on the energy of 2022, because I know that across the globe, things are not where we would want them to be. And, it's all well and good as astrologers and intuitives to look into the future and, really get caught up in what we think is coming. But really on a spiritual level and on an emotional level, we really cannot keep obsessing with what is going on to the point where it is negatively impacting our mindset. So, a way to sort of really discern how much time you are spending looking at things that may be upsetting or disturbing is to ask yourself, do I require this information in this moment? Or what will looking at this news article or at certain media, what purpose is this going to serve? Is it actually going to benefit me? Am I trying to improve my life? Or am I looking at relocating or applying for a job? Or am I a little bit, caught up in the drama of what's going on, which is very much, South Node in Scorpio energy, because it's really the dragon, the tail of the dragon. So it's got no head. So, this is really a bit of a warning to not lose your head in the toxicity and not to lose your head in looking at the dramatic side of things or on the darker side of things, because, during the best year of your life, terrible things can happen, but during the worst year of your life, miracles can also happen. And that extends, way past what we've been experiencing for the last year or two. So, something to remember as well is that we've become a little bit addicted to facts and information. So this is really North Node in Gemini energy, and this is not just for Geminis. Remembering that I'm a Gemini rising, so I'm definitely not casting any blame on you Geminis who are getting, high off of learning new information and learning new facts. But something to just note is that, honesty without compassion is just cruelty. And this is something that Bruce Kasanoff said, who's a social media ghostwriter for entrepreneurs. And the reason that I'm sharing this is because I think it's important when we think that we know something, or when we have come across a whole lot of information that we think will be important to share with other people, that it may not be the moment to share with another person. You know, we really just want to check in and see how that person is doing before we kind of like load them up with data and facts and information. So having said all that, let's get into the data and the facts and the information for what 2022 looks like. So let's start off with the Venus and Mars conjunction. The Venus and Pluto conjunction and the Mars and Pluto conjunction. Now, I see this as there being a very big call for sexual predators to be brought to justice. So there's going to be the exposure of pedophiles and pedophile rings en masse. And the reason I'm saying that it's going to be en masse rather than, you know, just your regular level exposure is because Venus and Pluto will be conjunct in Capricorn on the same day as Mars and Pluto. So you may find that around this time, and actually this will start in December because we're going to have Venus conjunct Pluto twice in December already. But there may be child abuse claims in record numbers, and you know, there may be some huge exposure of the abuse of children that comes to light, and there may even be claims of certain people being involved with satanic worship. Now, in terms of whom that may be, well, Capricorn represents authority figures, and it represents long-standing archaic organizations and structures. So certainly, you know, the occult and dark magic will be hot topics for 2022. Now, I've done a little bit of a Virgo moon deep dive into what has occurred in previous conjunctions between Mars and Pluto, and also Venus and Pluto. So let's take a look. Oh, and also, you know, natural disasters will be a thing between December and March. I don't mean to say that flippantly, but, you know, if we're looking at the history, certainly things that involve the Earth on a grand scale are going to be, you know, front and center for the first quarter of the month. So let's have a look at what happened in November in 2014. On the 10th of November in 2014, Mars conjunct Pluto at 11 degrees in Aquarius saw there being a 7.3 magnitude earthquake, which hit under the Molucca Sea in eastern Indonesia, which triggered a tsunami warning. So actually this was on the 15th of November. So, you know, it was a few days before the conjunction. Nonetheless, you know, it's not always going to be to the day. We can always look like a few days before and a few days after. Now, with the Venus-Pluto conjunction, which took place on the 13th of December in 2019, or a few days before this, we saw a volcano eruption which occurred in New Zealand. Now, this next one is bringing a little bit of you know, art into the picture, because obviously Venus rules art. So on the 11th of December in 2019, so 2 days before the Venus-Pluto conjunction, we discovered the earliest figurative artwork in the world, which was 43,900 years old, and it figures part human, part animal, and this was in a cave in Indonesia. So that's amazing, you know, for how fascinating. You know, we've got Pluto representing archaeology.
Something
right?
you got from the earth, something that's dead and you revive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
This is art.
And so, yeah, Venus is art. So sometimes astrology is so simple. You know, I was looking at this website, which is called On This Day. And so I was just, you know, scaling back months and years and years and years. And every time I saw something which was so simple, I was like, oh my God, yes, astrology is real. Not that we need to hear this, but
literal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so literal.
When there was Jupiter conjunct Venus in the heart of the lion a few years ago, 2017 or whatever, And then the story about the lion that was killed just exploded, and everyone started caring about the lion. He was shot in Africa or something, some lion. It was huge in 2017, whatever. So it's so literal sometimes.
Wow.
Anyway.
Absolutely. And just another literal example, one day before the Venus-Pluto conjunction in December 2019, the deepest point on land on Earth was identified under the Denman Glacier in East Antarctica. So, just another example of really plundering the Earth and going deep down. We're looking at what's happening with temperatures rising. We're looking at natural disasters, art being discovered. In the same period of time, Australia had where I'm from, hello, my fellow Australians, Australia had its hottest day ever with average temperatures of 40.9 degrees across the country. And also with this Venus-Pluto conjunction, the earliest fossilized trees, which were 386 million years old, were found at a quarry in Cairo, New York. So again, we're just going to be seeing some pretty exciting archaeological discoveries. So things that have been buried, whether these are artworks, ancient texts, especially given that this is occurring in Capricorn. So, in ancient astrology, Capricorn, Saturn ruling Capricorn represents ancient wisdom and ancient knowledge. And obviously, Capricorn represents anything which is extremely old. So, just another literal example. Now, if I'm looking at the darker side of Venus conjunct Pluto, if we go back to around the 23rd of February 2019, and this is when Venus was conjunct Pluto at 22 degrees Capricorn, we saw Colombian Juan Carlos Sanchez jailed for the sexual abuse of 276 children in Barranquilla. Now, we also, around this period of time, a few days before the conjunction, Pope Francis defrocked ex-cardinal and Archbishop of Washington, Theodore McCarrick, for sexually abusing minors and adults. This was the first ever cardinal to be removed for sexual abuse. Now, I could really go on and on and on. The amount of sexual abuse claims of children which are associated with these Venus-Pluto conjunctions, I don't want to spend the whole time looking at this, but the reason why this is so important to look at is because people will be exposed. This is the primary function of Pluto. It's to expose toxicity, it's to expose criminals, underhanded behaviors, anything to do with rape, sexual assault, anything of a devious sexual nature. And really, Venus representing the divine feminine, and anyone who has been abused, this is going to actually be an amazing moment for people being brought to justice and being held accountable. And the same goes for Mars conjunct Pluto. Just an example with Mars conjunct Pluto, on the 26th of April 2018, when Mars was retrograde conjunct Pluto at 21 degrees, comedian Bill Cosby was found guilty of sexual assault. That's one example. Another example that I'll use, and this one's pretty gory, but we saw the world's largest child sacrifice. So this was 140 remains uncovered by archaeologists near Trujillo in Peru, and this was dating back 550 years. Now, an example of someone being brought to justice was the Golden State Killer, identified after 40 years as a former police officer. So, guys, put the 3rd of March in your calendars for 2022, because so much darkness. Sorry?
So much darkness comes out.
Yeah, so much darkness is going to come out, but it's good. It's a purging, because we've got the South Node. We'll have the South Node in Scorpio, by this time from the 18th of January. So the Scorpio is like, being in Scorpio, it's like the sickness and the cure, right? Because another primary function of Pluto is to transform. Okay, so it's really Judgment Day. And I'm here for it. Now, If we're moving on to something a little more, well, I don't want to say lighthearted, but I guess more so than this topic, I do think that there's going to be some really interesting things that are happening in the royal family, especially around mid-May, because we're going to have this total lunar eclipse at 25 degrees in Scorpio. Now, I don't know how many of you have looked at the royal family and, just basically looked at, their sun, moon, midheaven. Essentially, so many people in the royal family have Taurus and Scorpio. So something to note is that the Queen will have this total lunar eclipse in Scorpio being exactly conjunct her midheaven at 25 degrees Scorpio. Now, in terms of the eclipses, we're going to have a new moon solar eclipse in October at 2 degrees Scorpio. This is exactly conjunct Prince William's midheaven. And what's very interesting is that both the Queen and Prince William have the North Node in Cancer. So, the Cancer is to do with, I suppose you could say, sovereign state. It represents the ultimate first family because it is the sign of Cancer. Now, the Queen is a 0 degree Taurus sun, and we've got Prince William as a 0 degree Cancer sun. Now, I know that this prediction's been made by, non-astrologers as well, but I do believe that this, the passing of the crown is going to skip Charles and go to William. Part of why I think that is the case is because Prince Charles's midheaven is in Aries. Okay, and it's 13 degrees. Aries is to do something different. Why doesn't he have a Scorpio midheaven? Why does he not have a Taurus midheaven? And also 13 degrees is the Aries degree. So maybe this will be the first time in history, per what Aries represents, to do something first. The first time in history that we are skipping the natural heir to the throne. And something else which is interesting is that his Chiron is at 28 degrees Scorpio. So this could be a wound, I suppose, if you will, on a global scale, which would be there for everyone to see. I mean, he's got this total lunar eclipse conjunct his sun, but the fact that he doesn't have, Saturn playing a big role in his chart just makes me think that he won't have this this huge burden the way that we see Saturn playing out in the Queen's chart and in Prince William's chart. Now, let's just have a look at what else we can chat about just before we get into the Gemini horoscope. I hope you're all finding this interesting. I wanted to get as many people involved in this first part as possible.
It's fascinating. How do you think about the lockdowns?
The lockdowns, if we look at what was happening with the Mars-Pluto conjunction back on the 23rd of March, and not to mention this formed at 24 degrees. This is the Piscean degree, which is to be isolated. It's not looking super promising if we just cast our mind back to what that represented. Essentially, it was lockdowns worldwide. On this date, we had 1 billion people under curfew in India. We had lockdowns imposed not nationwide, just across the globe. So in terms of when this would be, I don't think it will come with Venus being conjunct Pluto. I think it would more be with March. The logic in me wants to say that, they want to make money off of us around Christmas time, and then the sales that come. I mean, this is like totally not astrological. This is just like, they want people to spend as much money as possible in the lead up to Christmas. Venus conjunct Pluto, this is like spending bucket loads of money, and then this is going to continue. Then we usually have the sales post Christmas. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if more lockdowns were to occur actually around March rather than, December, January, February. But, I guess we're going to find out one way or another what's going to happen there. Did you have any thoughts on that, Lada?
Yeah, well, seeing those powerful conjunctions in Capricorn, what did the previous conjunction in Capricorn? Top-down control, plus Saturn is still in Aquarius. Aquarius is the society, Saturn is to control it. They're not going to stop until they introduce the digital ID for everyone, and they rule the economy, and then they bring the digital money. But now this is because with all the eclipses in Saturn, in Taurus and Scorpio, and with Uranus in Taurus. Taurus is money. Uranus and the North Node, the two innovations. Within a year, within a year and a half, they're going to bring new digital currency for everyone. So every transaction can be controlled and the digital ID. And then they'll relax the lockdowns because they don't need them anymore. And then we'll be in a very kind of controlled society. And some people might want to avoid it, but they really need to drop out of the system. Like they need to, I don't know, like say they live in the mountains, or they say they're dead, and they just kind of thing. So it's kind of inevitable, but it cannot stay too long, because maybe a few years, but eventually they cannot do centralized power. It's against Aquarius. Aquarius is decentralized power, and that's the age we're going for the next 2,000-3,000 years. So it's maybe it will hold in for a bit, but yeah. Anyway, I went too far ahead.
No. I totally agree with all of that. And in terms of this digital passport, I think what would make total sense as to when we would see this actually come into effect would be the Uranus and North Node conjunction in Taurus, especially with Mars there as well, because, you know, Uranus represents obviously large groups of people, represents society, and then, you know, we have Mars being an imposition on us, you know, and the North Node is to bring something new. And obviously in the sign of Taurus, Taurus represents money. Okay. And, you know, North Node can be something to do with technology, you know, from a Vedic perspective. Learned that from you, Lada. So, you know, I do think that we would see that come into effect.
Yeah, they might collapse financially. When is the conjunction Mars Uranus?
That's the 31st of July.
So around the summer there might be like big drop, or even before that, of the markets, or like they say, okay, we have a centralized currency, a digital currency around that time, and it's brought in very fast. They've been preparing it for years, but they'll say, oh, we're saving the situation, let's we're ready, we quickly did it, here it is. So
absolutely. And it wouldn't surprise me if they started developing this when Uranus first entered the sign of Taurus, because Uranus represents technology as well, and Taurus just represents what we're doing on an everyday practical level, you know, our comings and goings, because it's just Taurus, you know, it's the basics. And, you know, in terms of with recessions, well, with the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, looking back several years, and, you know, I don't want to spend too much time looking at it, but, you know, there were the recessions in 2009 of a whole different, a number of different countries. This was in the sign of Aquarius, 26 degrees Aquarius, on the 27th of May, 2009. So that would definitely be a time where we could expect that to come through. So that the conjunction for 2022 between Jupiter and Neptune will be on the 12th of April. And then obviously we're having that Uranus North Node Mars conjunction take place on the 31st of July. So it's like in a timely fashion coming through after the fact.
So you've noticed that Jupiter Neptune conjunctions have this so bad influence on finances, on money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jupiter is wealth, Neptune is to make invisible, to disappear.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. And, you know, in the sign of Pisces, this is to deceive, you know, this is to create an illusion. Oh, we're in a recession. Maybe we won't be in a recession. I'm not an economist, guys. I don't know how all this stuff works. All I can see is that, you know, in May 2019, we had Austria, Belgium, and Romania all in a recession. We also had Mexico, the first Latin American country to officially enter the recession.
2009, you mean? 2009?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say something to? It's 2009. Yeah. Sorry. And, we also had South Africa enter the global recession as well. This is all May 2009. So, and that was Aquarius. This is Pisces. So, this is
To
us
lose. Pisces, to
exactly to
lose.
lose big time and to not know exactly what is going on. Now, with the Uranus North Node and Mars conjunction, I really think so intuitively, I haven't done like the proper research to see how this is going to work out, but cryptocurrencies is going to be hit really hard. And that is because, Taurus represents wealth, Uranus is digital wealth, Uranus is, no centralized system of power. And, with Mars here, this is like taking control in a militant kind of way. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Given that Uranus and North Node will be at 18 degrees, this is a Virgo degree, which represents debt. So I'm just like, I've got some money in cryptos. My husband does. I don't know what's going on with my cryptocurrencies, but I'm like, we better look at this. So maybe
regulation coming around that time. That
I think so. Actually, there was something in my notes here about, with the Venus Pluto conjunction in Capricorn on the 20th, this was the 14th of February in 2019. JP Morgan is the first bank to create its own cryptocurrency. So that's a JPM coin. So maybe around March, we're going to see more banks creating their own cryptocurrencies. And look, this could come through in December anyway, given that we're going to have Venus conjunct Pluto, in tomorrow, I guess. So, that's another way that could play out. We're going to see banks creating their own cryptos. But essentially, but before I get into the actual Gemini horoscope, I do want to talk about Mars entering the sign of Gemini on the 20th of August, where it will remain until it's going to be there until the 25th of March in 2023. So guys, Mars is going to spend 7 months in the sign of Gemini. And the reason it's spending so long in Gemini is because it will have a retrograde cycle. And this will take place on the 30th of October through till the 12th of January. Now, the reason I want to talk about this to all of you before we get into Gemini specifically, for your 2022 horoscope, is because I am quite concerned about the agenda for basically causing some kind of disturbance amongst people just in general. And I mean, there's going to be a big serve of propaganda coming our way, which is going to basically try and manipulate us into spying on our neighbors, our friends, our family members, and our relatives. And I'm saying this because Gemini itself represents all of these individuals. Now, Mars will be in Gemini and Mercury will be in Scorpio. So they'll be in mutual reception with one another because they rule each other's signs. So, I can think of some pretty notable examples in history about when societies were basically programmed to start spying on their neighbors and their loved ones and to, turn them into the government. So, if you think about it, there's over 7 billion people in the world, and we can't have all governments and all armed forces and police forces monitoring every single person in the world. So the easiest way to monitor people and to get them to uphold whatever kind of law or standards you want them to uphold is to get them to turn on each other and to stop trusting each other. So, this is like, maybe I should have started with this. This is my most important message for all of you, is to start forming connections with your neighbors now, with your co-workers, with friends, with people in your community. Make sure you're checking up on them. Gemini represents our skills and our talents. So this represents, being like a handyman or like your skills with certain trades. So this is about you forming connections and alliances with the people who surround you so that you can help each other in times of need. Because really something is going to happen around the end of August, and probably in the lead up to that, there's going to be a big push to make sure that, you know, your neighbors are doing the right thing, and are your family members doing the right thing? And if they're not, you know, we have these incentives for you to report them. And, you know, this is really about people turning on each other at a global level. And we're already seeing this anyway with the North Node being in Gemini. You know, people are just addicted to finding out their facts and, you know, consuming news stories.
Everyone is throwing statistics, vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, everyone throws their own statistics. It's going crazy.
Yes.
You're so correct. I never thought about this Mars in Gemini, but also Nicole Stoyanovich used to say Neptune is spying. And Mars will make 3 times square with Neptune as well from Pisces. So that's, you're so right. And it's going to carry on for 6 months. So there'll be a huge propaganda Gemini agenda to, wow. Oh, tell us something good.
Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about some exciting stuff. Sorry, it's 35 minutes of doom and gloom, even though that was my opening message not to do that. The good stuff, guys, is Jupiter and Neptune forming this conjunction in Pisces. Despite everything, we are going to embrace astrology and spirituality on such an incredible level. It's going to be so uplifting, and really people are just going to embrace it. And I said this in my December forecast video, but when you tell people, oh, I'm an astrologer, or I had a tarot reader, this won't be weird. People will be like, give me their number. I want to find out, you know, what experience you had. And there's going to be this openness to it. There's going to be this boundarylessness or this limitlessness to the sorts of spiritual information that we want to basically learn about, because Jupiter represents knowledge and wisdom, and this is of the esoteric kind. This is of the spiritual kind. So, you know, for all of you guys who are here watching now, you guys are ahead of the curve. You know, your friends and your family are going to be coming to you being like, where can I get a Reiki healing? You know, where can I learn about astrology? Because Jupiter is to learn. So, you know, we're seeing this already, given that we had Jupiter in Pisces for like 10 weeks from May through till July. Essentially, you know, we're seeing astrologers and tarot readers pop up like daisies. And, you know, this is not competition. If you're in this industry, if you're in this field, just know that the reason why so many people are becoming astrologers and tarot readers and Reiki healers and clairvoyants is because it's supply and demand on a cosmic level. The world needs more astrologers. The world needs more tarot readers. The world needs more intuitives. And, you know, if you guys have ever watched X-Men, it's like when Xavier goes into that, what's it called? I don't know. He wears like the helmet thing, and then he can see the whole world, and he can see where all the little X-Men are, and they just light up, and, you know, they start multiplying. So this is really intuitives of all kinds, and it's infectious, but in the best kind of way. Have you noticed this, Lada, that there's like people being a lot more open to it?
I'm so happy. When I was first starting, there was, I think everyone that I know is interested in those things now. It's in such times, that's what people turn to. It's when everything is kind of there is wealth and comfort, people don't turn to spirituality. So it's such a gift to us. It's very difficult how it's happening, because people's lives are falling apart. They're going into mental breakdowns and whatnot. And normal medicine is not helping. Their normal advice is not helping. So they come to people like us. So
yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. You know, this is what the world needs. And this is why on a really, really big picture scale, this is why we are where we are in the world, because, you know, we had to be put through a difficult set of circumstances to basically see us cultivating compassion and wisdom on such a grand scale. And, you know, what we're going through collectively I mean, there's been very few times in history where people have been united in their experiences, regardless of what their status is in society or how much money they have. You know, it's sort of like everyone being in the same boat, so to speak. So, you know, just remember, before I get into my Gemini 2022 horoscope, I just want to remind you guys that, you know, there's so much compassion around you, whether this is in your home or reaching out to someone on the internet. You'd be surprised if you ask someone for help, just how readily available people are to lend their support. And it's been scientifically proven that when a crisis occurs on a grand scale, that, you know, humans are actually great at getting themselves together and organizing themselves and helping each other through crises. You know, it's not about me first. It's about, you know, helping our fellow brothers and sisters. And certainly once we move into 2023 with Pluto in Aquarius, our ability to form groups and communities is going to be transformed on a grand scale. But let's start with 2022. So thank you, Geminis, for sticking around. I hope that that all these facts and figures tickled your fancy. Now I'm gonna.
And by the way, Cailin has horoscopes in that for all the signs. They've been selling like hot bread, so you can check them out at the very for an hour and a half, something for each sign. They're fascinating. You can check them out. I'll put the link below. So Gemini, here we come.
Yes, thank you. And they're on sale actually, guys, until the 15th of December. So, you know, if you want to grab yours, I would watch for your ascendant, sun, and moon. If you're only going to buy one, I'd start with your ascendant. But yes, let's get into Gemini. So I wanted to look at how the North Node, otherwise known as Rahu, entering the sign of Taurus is going to affect you. And, you know, the North Node will be transiting your 12th house. And we're going to have the South Node transiting your 6th house in the sign of Scorpio. And this will be from the 18th of January, 2022 through till mid-July, 2023. So wherever the North Node goes, whichever house it transits, it brings something new to the house that it transits. Now, it's interesting because the North Node represents something tangible and something physical, and the 12th house is the most intangible of houses. So the 12th house is associated with our intuitive abilities, our psychic gifts. The 12th house represents our creative talents. So does the 5th house, but, you know, the 12th house does as well. And essentially this can lead you to developing some kind of new intuitive ability or a new psychic gift. And you may feel like you actually have tangible proof of what's going on, you know, on the other side. So if you have loved ones who've passed away, you may feel like you're starting to get messages from them. And this can be in the form of seeing angel numbers, for example, you know, 333, 1111, 888, and so on and so forth. Now, with this North Node transiting your 12th house, you can actually have a sudden rise in status. And that is because the North Node represents where we can basically take the fast lane to get to where we're going. So if you think about what you know about Saturn, you know, with having to do everything in small incremental steps and with repetition, essentially the North Node is the opposite of that energy. Now, the 12th house is associated with various forms of the arts, such as acting, photography, filmography, creative writing, poetry, and music. So you can actually have a sudden rise in, you know, status by pursuing one of these industries. So if you already work in this industry, or if you're just looking at getting into it, you can have a lot of success here. Now, the 12th house is also connected to astrology, tarot, anything to do with the occult, and it also represents retreats of all kinds. So these are like spiritual retreats, or anywhere you go, which is secluded from the rest of society. So, you know, if you're looking at starting an astrology business or a tarot business, or if you're looking at opening a retreat or basically, opening up an Airbnb account or entering into the hotel industry or the spa and beauty industry. All of these areas are industries where you can have a lot of success with the North Node transiting your 12th house. So once again, it'll be there for 18 months. And with these North Node and South Node transits, just know that when you will see these developments take place will be not just around that 18-month period, but a rapid development of these things around the eclipses, which will be in April, May, November, and October and November of 2022. Now, this can see you actually coming across some kind of hidden wealth, or you may actually amass a lot of money that you have to keep hidden from other people. And that is because Taurus represents money and the 12th house represents something which is hidden or which has to be kept a secret. Now, this can lead you to having access to a faraway country, whether this is traveling there or relocating there. And on a different level, this can just flat out see you having a spiritual awakening. Now, in terms of when that would be most likely to happen on the spiritual awakening front, I would say around the 30th of April, when we will have a new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. Now, I want to present a balanced overview of the positive side and the not so positive side. So the downside of having the North Node here can see you having some really big expenses. And that is because the 12th house is connected to big expenses / financial losses. Ultimately, though, because it is the North Node, which brings something tangible, I would see this as more to do with some big purchases that you need to make rather than you losing out with your money. Now, the North Node can represent where we have addictions. So you may, or obsessions or fixations. And the 12th house represents something to do with a glamorous lifestyle in Hollywood. And also the 12th house is linked to basically alcohol, so drinking, drugs, and I guess you could say a rock and roll lifestyle. So this could see you becoming quite fixated or obsessed with the idea of being someone who is famous or someone who has access to this luxurious lifestyle, which is very Taurian. So basically, Taurus can represent hedonism at its lowest vibration, and the North Node can represent having an insatiable appetite for something. So this can be taking it too far with indulging in these things. Now, with the South Node, otherwise known as Ketu, being in Scorpio in your 6th house, this can see you basically not having so many responsibilities or duties, and this can be a really positive thing. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we've got Scorpio representing toxicity and poison, and anything which is like to do with drama or anything that is untoward. And the South Node or Ketu empties this out. So this can see you experiencing the end of a court case or the end of a very difficult and conflictual situation. The 6th house is also connected to health. So this can see you basically discovering the root cause of some kind of health ailment or a health issue. And for some of you, this could be the end of a bad habit that you've been trying to kick. And the 6th house represents your work environment. So this can see you reducing your workload, and maybe you're just feeling like you're not overworked anymore, or maybe you're approved for paternity leave or maternity leave, or perhaps you have a health issue that you need to deal with and you have been approved for some kind of part-time work schedule. Now, this can see you actually ending some kind of frenemy situation. So the 6th house represents enemies. So, even if there's someone who's like actually been flat out to get you, this can see that that relationship basically dissipating. So maybe this person is just really obsessed with you, or they're trying to cut you down in the workplace. Maybe they leave the workplace, even if it's not in the workplace. This can play out on any kind of level, with someone arguing with you, trying to cut you down, someone who's denigrating you, or someone who's been bullying you. And for some reason, this situation can really just dissipate. Now, with the South Node being in the 6th house, this can see you, on the downside, this can see you feeling apathetic, okay, because the South Node can represent confusion or apathy. And with the 6th house ruling over work and ruling over our health and routines, this can see you feeling quite apathetic about working as it is. This can see you feeling like you don't have the energy to basically stick to any kind of health regime, whether this is a workout regime, or if this is to do with diet. This can just see you not caring, basically. Now, with the South Node being in your 6th house, a boss that you really like and admire may leave the workplace, or an employee that you like and admire may leave the workplace as well. Now, let's talk about how this Mercury and Pluto conjunction is going to affect you, as well as the Venus and Mars and Venus and Pluto conjunction and Mars and Pluto conjunction. So basically, Mercury will form a conjunction with Pluto 3 times. The first will be on the 30th of December. The second will be on the 28th of, that's the 30th of December 2021. The second is on the 28th of January 2022. And the third is on the 11th of February in 2022 as well. So I actually see this as you having a little bit of a head start on what everyone else has to deal with these conjunctions between Pluto and Venus and Mars. So basically, this can see a new situation appearing where you're basically challenged to take control or accountability and to start restructuring your life. And that is because conjunctions represent the beginning of something new. The fact that it is in Capricorn represents it's cardinal energy, so it's something that you haven't dealt with before. And Capricorn represents you building up your life and restructuring your life and really being accountable for your actions. So given that this conjunction is occurring in your 8th house, this can see you having a new situation which arises, which pertains to emotional intimacy with another person, or this could be to do with delving into some kind of psychological practice. So maybe you're seeing a psychologist or a therapist, or maybe you're starting to investigate these matters for yourself. And it doesn't just have to be traditional psychology. You could be looking at hypnosis, or you could be looking at studying astrology for yourself, or looking at studying tarot. Now, this can see you having to combine your mutual resources with another person, and maybe you feel hesitant about doing this because maybe you just flat out have trust issues. With Saturn ruling over your 8th house, this is a big topic for Geminis, and I know that it's not really discussed that much. People don't really associate Geminis with having trust issues. Sometimes it can be the other way around, but because you have Capricorn there on the 8th house cusp, and this is whole sign, by the way, this can just see you basically clamming up or stiffening up when there are talks of combining your resources with another person, or actually becoming really emotionally intimate with another person. So because Mercury is your ruling planet and rules over your 4th house as well as your 1st house, this can see you having some kind of mental conflict or an existential crisis regarding your direction in life, or what you want to do with your living circumstances, or with property, or with your family life. And some of you may just need to be facing fears which are buried deep beneath the surface. Okay, so this could be issues with addiction. That's another way that this conjunction could be playing out. So this is asking you to take accountability there. And maybe the awareness of this thing that you need to change in your life has been bubbling underneath the surface for years, but then it just kind of sneaks up on you. And I'm saying this because Pluto has been transiting your 8th house in Capricorn for ages. So, you may just have this understanding that you actually need to take action because something toxic has been brewing underneath the surface. So you may have been experiencing poor concentration in the workplace, and you may have been experiencing a lack of determination to basically change your approach to life. And I'm saying this because, Mercury rules over your 1st house. It's your chart ruler. So this really represents what you're doing in life, what direction you're going in, what you want to do going forwards. And with Pluto ruling over your 6th house, you may have been suffering from poor health, or there could have been a lack of determination to work out and really just take care of certain duties and responsibilities. So because this conjunction is forming 3 times, this will actually just see you getting your bum into gear. Now, with Mars and Venus conjuncting Pluto in Capricorn at 27 degrees on the 3rd of March, like I said, somehow you're like more prepared for this situation because you've just had this conjunction take place with your chart ruler 3 times. But essentially, this can see you being transformed by discovering your creative gifts and your natural talents. And I'm saying this because Venus rules over your 5th house, which is Libra. So this represents your natural gifts and talents, and it rules over your 12th house, which also shows where you are creative. So because Venus conjuncted Pluto, well, it will conjunct Pluto twice already in December, and then we're seeing this take place for a 3rd and final time in March. It's like a psychological transformation has taken place as a result of you discovering some kind of new talent or gift that you have. So this could actually have transformed your confidence. Now, it's likely that you may have felt as though you had lost your confidence over December, January, and then maybe February, but then finally, come early March, you have mastered something. Now, because Mars rules over your 11th house as well as your 6th house, this can see you actually committing to a long-term goal or dream. So, don't fear Mars and Pluto conjunctions. They happen every couple of years. And, this can see you actually transforming your life when it comes to your health, because Mars and Pluto both rule over your 6th house, which represents health. And this can see you actually being able to go out and achieve a long-term goal or dream of yours. Now, let's have a look at the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction, which is going to take place at 23 degrees in Pisces in your 10th house. Just give me 1 second. Obviously, I'm talking a lot. So this conjunction takes place every 13 years. Now, you will not have had this conjunction take place in your 10th house in this lifetime in the sign of Pisces. So essentially, this will affect the collective at large. And I'm saying this because this conjunction is taking place at 23 degrees, which is the Aquarius degree. And because it's occurring in your 10th house, somehow you may be coming into the public eye. So people may know your name, you may go viral around this point in time, and that is because Neptune dissolves boundaries, and both Jupiter and Neptune rule over your 10th house, which is Pisces. So this can actually see you being a revered figure in society, and this could be for something artistic that you have done or something creative. And I'm saying this because Neptune is connected to music and acting and creative writing and photography and filmography. And of course, it's also connected to things like psychology, spirituality, and healing. Now, it is also connected to charities and donations and refugees. And Jupiter itself is associated with basically benevolence and generosity and giving freely of ourselves. And Jupiter represents wisdom. So somehow it's like you are coming into the public sphere for your wisdom or your knowledge or your expertise, or perhaps even your generosity. So this can see some of you having huge success in terms of your career with something to do with the arts or something creative. And because Jupiter rules over your 7th house, which represents your one-on-one relationships and collaborations, this can see there being a really big opportunity for you to collaborate with someone who's a very well-known figure in society. And I'm saying this because Jupiter represents someone who is very influential, someone who has a very dignified standing in society. And Jupiter also represents teachers and mentors. So essentially, you may collaborate with someone who is, I don't want to use the term above your station, but I can't think of anything else at the moment. So it's like this person has a lot more knowledge than you, and then you have this opportunity to collaborate with them. And this is like a really big win for you guys. Now, this could actually see you achieving a position of leadership, especially if it's in one of those aforementioned industries. Something else to note is that Neptune and Pisces are associated with pharmaceuticals, as well as marine life and anything to do with working with water. So, if you're into let's say preserving, I don't know, the Great Barrier Reef, or if you're into helping aquatic life or marine life, you can have a lot of success in your career. And once again, this is on the 12th of April in 2022. So, there may just be a big opportunity for you in that respect. Now, this can actually see some of you having some kind of public marriage proposal take place. And that is because the 7th house, which Jupiter rules over, represents marriage, and Neptune represents something idyllic. So something that's to do with like a fairy tale. So maybe you are being proposed to, maybe you're like, I don't know, at a baseball game or something, and then someone proposes to you on the screen, and then people are just like, watching it on a grand scale. Now, in terms of how this is going to impact you, if I'm just breaking this down by sun, moon, and rising, if your moon is in Gemini, the moon represents your family life and your property and your living circumstances. So this conjunction can see you basically being perceived as like a perfect parent, or someone who's very kind and gentle and generous with their children, very loving. Maybe you encourage your children's creative gifts and abilities, and this could see you somehow having your status change in society. Now, another way that this can play out with the 10th house representing our reputation, if you had a bad reputation for something to do with family or something to do with your career or just your life in general, this can actually see like the slate being wiped clean. So any kind of wrongdoing or any kind of scandal that you've been associated with in the past can actually be transmuted around this time. And this can actually see you receiving a lot of like forgiveness from the collective. Now, if you are a moon in Gemini person, like I said, this could just see people seeing your family as like picture perfect, or maybe they're saying that you and your partner make the perfect couple. And again, this could come off the back of either you getting proposed to, or perhaps you have like formed a committed long-term relationship with another person. Now, if your sun is in Gemini, and you own your own business, or if you're a boss, this can basically have people seeing you as being a great boss, or someone who has an amazing company, or you have this like great corporation to work for, and you can be seen as spiritually progressive. So maybe you're prioritizing the emotional health of your workers, and maybe you're having like sleeping pods or yoga studios in your office or something, which is like very Piscean in nature. Now, even if you are not self-employed, maybe you have a wonderful boss and they can act like a mentor and take you under their wing. And maybe you feel like you can really emotionally depend on your boss or on an authority figure who's in the workplace. And, your boss may be extremely generous with you and your co-workers as employees. Maybe this is surpassing all of your expectations. Now, there could actually be an opportunity for you, Sun in Gemini people, to travel internationally for work, or this could be, to a faraway country. And this would be like a very exciting opportunity for you. And because we're looking at Jupiter, which is generous in nature, and Neptune, which is about generosity again, maybe this is like an all expenses paid for trip. Now, for you Gemini risings, my fellow Gemini risings, all of the above can apply to you. And, this will certainly affect you the strongest. I would pay attention to your degrees in this instance. So if you are a Sun or Gemini ascendant, you will feel this very strongly if, you're at about 24 degrees. I'll extend that a bit further from 20 through till 28 degrees. If your moon is in Gemini, I'll extend this even further. And, you may experience this strongly if your moon is in Gemini from 16 till 29 degrees. So let's move along to look at the Neptune square Gemini transit, which is basically occurring for like the whole year. So Neptune will it'll transit Pisces from 21 through till 25 degrees. So if you are a Gemini sun, moon, or rising between 21 to 25 degrees, this will affect you the strongest. And I'm only going to give this a 1 degree orb. So let's say 20 till 26 degrees. And that is because Neptune moves so slowly that, you know, if you're like an early born Gemini, or if you're a Gemini moon at like 5 degrees, you've already gone through the square. So you know, you don't have to worry about that. Now, with this square to your sun, moon, or ascendant, this can see you feeling confused. And that is because Neptune represents confusion. Okay, so if this is your sun, maybe you are having trouble attaining a promotion or a position of leadership. Maybe there are difficulties with you being your own boss. Maybe you don't know how to switch off from your clients. And I'm saying this because well, not necessarily your clients, but from work. And I'm saying this because Neptune rules over your 10th house, which represents your career and your responsibilities. And this square to your sun can just see there being a real blending between your personal life and work. And it's like there's no boundaries here. So maybe work has become your whole life and there's really no distinction between the two. This could see you having difficulties with maintaining a relationship with your father or with a father figure. Maybe he's just an elusive figure in your life, or maybe you feel like you really need him and he's just not emotionally available at this time. Now, if your moon is between, let's say, 20 to 26 degrees Gemini, this can see your responsibilities as a parent, if you are a parent, being quite overwhelming, and maybe you feel like there's just no reprieve from this ultimate position of leadership. And for some of you, this may be dissolving your ability to work in a professional career or in a professional capacity. And maybe you're seeing this as a really big sacrifice that you have to make, because Neptune represents sacrifices. Now, if you're a Gemini rising from 20 to 26 degrees, all of the above applies. And perhaps your public reputation is it doesn't like gel with how you feel you are as a person. So this can see you feeling like people are projecting onto you, which is something that Neptune can bring. And maybe people are idolizing you. You know, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. Maybe you just feel like they see you as this perfect person, and it's really hard for you to maintain these levels of perfection or to live up to these standards. And maybe you're finding it difficult to actually be true to yourself because, you know, people just see you as this person who is perfect and they would never do anything wrong, and you just feel like you can't be yourself in some way. And on a different level, this can see you feeling confused between what the public think of you and who you really are. So the shoe can be on the other foot, where maybe people are spreading rumors or mistruths about you. You know, Neptune represents disillusion and deception. So maybe there are some negative things going around about you with regard to your reputation, and you're actually starting to question yourself, and you're like, oh my God, is what they're saying true about me? You know, it can really create this like break from your ability to understand who you are as a person and how the public sees you, or what your reputation is in society. Now, I'm going to look at the Saturn trine to Gemini. So obviously Saturn has been trining Gemini for quite a while now. Essentially in 2022, Saturn will move through Aquarius from 11 degrees through till 25 degrees, but it will spend the most time between 18 and 22. So really, you know, if you're about 10 degrees through till 26 degrees, Gemini sun, moon, or rising, you know, you're going to feel this very strongly. And this is positive. You know, trines they carry the energy of Jupiter. So this is like responsibilities are coming easily to you. You're actually being respected for your contribution to society, or just you as a person. You may just find yourself like being loaded up with more responsibilities, but you're finding them easier and easier to handle. So essentially Saturn represents responsibilities, it represents structure and boundaries, and, you know, it represents older people, just generally speaking. So this trine can see there being help from an older figure in your life, whether this is a grandparent or, you know, someone who you just happen to have a connection with. And because we're looking at this trine, this is like because we're looking at this this trine energy, which represents expansion and growth and ease and the flow of opportunities coming to us, this can basically see you having more expansion with your career if your sun is in Gemini. And, you know, if you had some difficult circumstances take place in your life, especially if your moon is in Gemini, this can see you starting to rebuild your life. So I'll go through them, you know, by sun, moon, and ascendant, and then we're going to move through to looking at Jupiter in Aries. So for people who have their sun in Gemini between 10 degrees through till 26 degrees, this can see you receiving support from a mentor or from a teacher. So because the sun represents your career in your chart, as does Saturn, this can see you receiving support from someone else who's like investing in your career. So maybe they are taking you under their wing and really supporting and nurturing your career. And maybe they are helping you come up with a business plan. They could be helping you to structure your career. They could be helping you to enforce boundaries. And, this could see them helping you to play the long game. So this is about looking at your vision for the future. And that is because Saturn is in the 9th house, and the 9th house represents our long-term goals for the future, or our long-term vision. And, it differs with respect to the 11th house because the 9th house is more about your faith in what you want to do and your life purpose, whereas the 11th house is more like the goals that you're setting. So this could see you actually simplifying your life goals. So if you have been struggling to basically choose a direction, or if you have been struggling to limit yourself to one thing, maybe you're actually finding it easier to choose 1, 2, or 3 things and just focus on those and really start building your career in that direction. Now, on a different level, this can help you reconnect to your sense of faith, and whether this is religious or spiritual or looking at, higher forces in the world. Maybe some kind of crisis occurred, especially with Saturn ruling over the 8th house, and maybe you lost your faith in God, or maybe you lost your faith in a certain religion, and now this trine to your sun is actually helping you to connect to that faith and essentially that sense of optimism once more. And, if your moon is in Gemini between 10 degrees and 26 degrees, this can see you starting to rebuild your life after experiencing someone passing away that you loved. And I'm saying this because Saturn rules over the 8th house, and Saturn represents karma. So maybe you experienced this and this loss in your life, and you've found it really, really hard to, get your life back on track or to find meaning in your life after this person has passed. And with Saturn trining your moon in Gemini, this can actually see you start to rebuild your personal life. And also, the moon represents our psychological foundations. So this is a really helpful energy in that respect. Now, if your ascendant is in Gemini, all of the above applies, but on a different level. This can see you becoming more mature and having more responsibilities. And some of you may be looking at becoming a teacher or a mentor yourself. And you could actually be working towards a master's or postgraduate study. So essentially, you could be working on something that will benefit your career in the long run. And because the 9th house represents our morals and our values, you could actually just be redefining what your morals are and what your values are, and you could become a very respectable member of society. So with Saturn trining your ascendant, and with Saturn ruling over the 8th house, which represents some kind of crisis taking place, this can see you cultivating your ability to remain calm, cool, and collected during a crisis. So with Jupiter entering the sign of Aries on the 10th of May and being there until the 28th of October, this is actually a really exciting aspect because it will be making a sextile to your sun, moon, or rising. Now, Jupiter is only going to go from 0 degrees Aries through till 8 degrees before it starts retrograding backwards. So the Gemini sun, moon, and risings who will be impacted the most will be those who fall between 0 degrees. And if your sun and ascendant are between 0 and 11 degrees, you're going to feel this pretty strongly. If it's your moon, 0 to 15 degrees, either way, you are going to feel it. And this is going to be a very beneficial energy. And essentially, sextiles carry the energy of Venus, and it also represents harmony and cooperation, and it represents receiving help from another person. So Jupiter represents expansion and it represents growth, and the 11th house represents our long-term goals and dreams for the future. So with Jupiter here, you could actually set a new long-term goal for what you want to do going forwards. And because Jupiter rules over your 10th house, which represents your career, as well as your highest possible worldly achievements and responsibilities, maybe you are looking at what you want to do in the long term. And this is because the 11th house represents our legacy. Now, even if you're no longer in the workforce, whether you are out of work temporarily, or maybe you have retired altogether, it doesn't matter, because either way, Jupiter ruling over the 10th house represents your highest possible achievements. So maybe, this is looking at you forming or founding some kind of group or community or organization which is going to help other people. It definitely doesn't have to pertain to career. So some of you may be starting to plan a large scale event, which is represented by the 11th house. And, the 11th house represents benefactors and government subsidies. So you may actually have some kind of cash flow increase here. And the 11th house also represents salary. So, you could have an increase in your salary, you could receive approval for some kind of government subsidy. The 11th house represents rents and royalties and our investments. So, with Jupiter being in a money house and also representing wealth itself, this can actually be a really positive thing on the financial side of things. Now, the 11th house represents our social media platform, and Jupiter expands whatever it touches. And because Jupiter rules over your 10th house, which represents your public reputation, this can actually see your social media accounts blowing up. So you could go viral. Now, with, let's see. So yes, you certainly could become very well known online, and maybe you're starting to learn about how to build an empire. Maybe you're just learning about how to grow a social media following. Maybe you are starting a social media platform, and the 11th house represents awards and accolades and prizes. So, if there's something that you've done in a collaboration with another person, represented by Jupiter ruling over your 7th house, or if there's something that you do in your career, or even if this is like your contribution to your career over a long period of time and now you've retired altogether, this can see you actually receiving some kind of prize or award or accolade for your efforts. So I certainly would be applying for some kind of competition, or, if you have written a book or done something notable. The dates where you'd want to apply would be from the 10th of May through till the 28th of July, because that is when Jupiter will be direct in motion in Aries. Now, let's have a look at the Uranus and North Node and Mars conjunction in Taurus in your 12th house. And then I'm going to end on Mars being retrograde in Gemini. So not too much longer for you guys. I hope you're enjoying it so far. So basically let me scroll down here. On the 31st of July, we are going to see Uranus and the North Node forming a conjunction at 18 degrees in Taurus, and Mars will be at 17 degrees Taurus. So it won't actually be an exact conjunction. However, it's still very important to note because it's so close to the conjunction that it will have an impact on it. So I see this as you having a sudden download of information, and that is because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, and it represents receiving knowledge like instantaneously. So because this is occurring in your 12th house, this download of information can come through while you're sleeping, while you're meditating, while you're doing yoga. This can come through while you are deeply relaxed. So this could be while you're listening to music, playing music or painting or doing something artistic. And of course, the 12th house represents foreign countries. So if you're in some kind of country which is really far away from where you live, maybe you are going to have an amazing idea while you were overseas. With Mars ruling over your 11th house, this can see you having a download of information for when it comes to what or where to invest your long-term goals, where to invest your money. Okay, so this can be about what to do with these long-term goals that you have, what business ventures you want to explore. And that is especially the case because Mars rules over your 6th house, and the 6th house represents our work, and it also represents debt. So maybe you're having this sudden download of information, which is going to allow you to figure out how to get yourself out of a really tight spot, financially speaking. And you could certainly come up with a way to generate a much higher salary or a much higher income. Now, the 11th house is connected to cryptocurrencies and marketplaces. So you could have some kind of epiphany when it comes to where you should be, or which cryptos you should be investing in, or what you should be doing with the stock market. And maybe you're actually going to have a really big breakthrough with regard to what to do with your resources, as represented by the sign of Taurus itself. Now, the 11th house, like I said, represents your long-term goals and dreams. So with Mars ruling over your 6th house and with Uranus ruling over your 9th house, this can see you having some new goals that you're setting with regard to wanting to travel abroad, wanting to work abroad. Maybe you are changing your mind about where you are currently working, what industry you're currently working in. And essentially, Uranus can represent divorce and Mars can represent breaking something. So this can see you actually cutting ties with your workplace. So this could come about really, really abruptly, and you could literally wake up from a night's sleep being like, I hate it here and I want to leave, or I want to, go halfway across the world and live in another country. Now, I do see this as you having some kind of genius idea, and that is because Uranus represents information, Mars represents engineering, and Mars ruling over your 11th house, which represents innovation anyway, because it is connected to Aquarian energy. And, we've got this Uranian influence. You may actually have some kind of download of information when it comes to developing some new technology, because the North Node represents something which is new and it is associated with new technology as well, as is Uranus. And Uranus ruling over the 9th house can see this pertaining to import and export, printing, publishing. Maybe you're looking at digital printing. Maybe you are looking at air travel. So you could invent something new or create something new. And, this could also impact the food industry or the food chain supply. And that is because Taurus rules over food, and also Taurus rules over agriculture and farming. So maybe you have some exciting new ideas that you want to pursue, or that you want to engineer or create or innovate, which pertain to those sorts of things. Now, lastly, with this conjunction in your 12th house, with Mars ruling over your 6th house, which represents your health, and with the 12th house dissolving things, this can actually see you having a breakthrough when it comes to your health. So you may actually discover the root cause of some kind of issue. And I'm saying this because Mars is in the 12th house, and the 12th house represents that which is hidden. So this can see you actually piercing the veil and discovering what you need to do to improve your health. So with Mars ruling over your 6th house, which represents your health, and with Uranus ruling over your 9th house, which represents seeing the bigger picture, this is like, okay, I know how to improve my health. I know what I'm doing wrong. And you know what, for some of you, this could be linked to self-sabotaging behavior, which is represented by the 12th house. And Mars ruling over the 6th house represents your daily routines and your habits. So I actually see this as you having the power to dramatically improve your current health and well-being. And once again, that was on the 31st of July. Now, lastly, for this 2022 horoscope, I want to look at Mars being retrograde in the sign of Gemini. But first, let's look at when Mars enters Gemini. So that will be on the 20th of August in 2022, and it will station retrograde on the 30th of October at 25 degrees. So it will be retrograde from 25 degrees Gemini backwards through till 8 degrees. So certainly, you know what, I'm just going to say all Geminis, it doesn't matter what degree you are, this really will impact you because it is occurring in your first house. So essentially, Mars being in your first house can see you needing to cultivate more willpower. So your boundaries may be tested, or you may be looking at initiating some kind of new job. And I'm saying this because Mars rules over the 6th house, which represents your work. So maybe you are looking at starting a new job, entering a new industry. Maybe you're looking at taking on more responsibilities or becoming a manager in the workplace. And, something to note is that Mercury will actually be in Scorpio from the 29th of October. So Mars will be in Gemini, Mercury will be in Scorpio. So they will be in mutual reception with one another. Now, Mars spends about, it's going to spend, about 10 weeks being retrograde here. And Mars has a retrograde cycle once every couple of years, or thereabouts. So essentially, when it is retrograde in our first house, there can be some kind of conflict or challenge that arises that we need to deal with. Now, because Mars rules over your 11th house and we have this supportive energy from Mercury, which is your chart ruler, and this is going to be in your 6th house, I see this as you working diligently towards some kind of long-term goal or dream, because Mars rules over the 11th house. So this could be connected to work, or this could be connected to you discovering the root cause of some kind of health issue or health ailment. And essentially, you may start some kind of new routine as represented by Mars ruling over the 6th house. And this could be, with your health, or this could be in the workplace. Maybe you're starting to work on a new project and maybe everything's going fine. So from the 20th of August, it's like, cool, full steam ahead. I've got so much energy. I really want to get this done. This is going to increase my salary or my earning potential. This is going to see me fulfilling a long-term goal or dream. Maybe you're going to be looking at planning a large-scale event or working with a group or a community, and you're like, awesome, this is going really well. And then the Mars retrograde period hits at the end of October, and it's like, oh my God, all my planning has gone out the window, or I need to pivot and adjust. So essentially, Mars represents our strategy and our action plan. So this can see you having to make some very big adjustments in the workplace. This can see there being some really big deadlines which crop up, which may need to move. So if you are looking at completing some kind of big project, whether this is for you personally or whether this is for work, I would not be scheduling the completion of this project anywhere between the 30th of October and the 12th of January. I'd be putting it, as far into 2023 as possible. And certainly, best case scenario, if you get a choice, I would say the end of March 2023. So essentially, with Mars being retrograde in your first house, this can lend itself to an increased potential for having some kind of accident. So, you just want to make sure that you are not doing any kind of risk-taking behaviors around this point in time. And also, I would not be doing any kind of like extreme sports. So that would be something to avoid. And essentially, with Mars being retrograde, it means that we're going to have to put more than 3 times the usual amount of effort to get the job done. But at the end of it, you may have completed a large-scale project or a long-term dream of yours, and you can have so much success in this and you'll really be able to pat yourself on the back, but there will just be hiccups at the beginning. But again, with Mercury being in Scorpio in your 6th house and this being your chart ruler, this can actually see you identifying where the problems are, identifying what may be a potential conflict of interest with another person, and you can really circumvent these issues cropping up, whether this is in the workplace or to do with your health, or, like I said, if you're involved with a large group or a community, well, you may actually have a little bit of discord with certain members, but you can actually resolve these conflicts. So Gemini, that's all I have for you for today, for your 2022 horoscope. I really hope that you have enjoyed this reading. Oh, sorry, I forgot you were there.
Sorry. Did I scare you?
Yes. Oh, what a way to end it. I was so in the zone.
Quiet to everyone. I'm scared you. I forgot that I unmuted myself.
No, all good, all good. Well, thank you, Lada.
Thank you so much. That was so in depth. I loved so many of your insight, especially for the general prediction, what you're seeing. And if anyone would like a personal reading with Cailin, she could do a reading for you, very specific, as you can see, for 2022. I'll put the link below. I don't know if you have a promo now.
Yes, I do. I have a promotion on my birth chart reading. So this is normally $140 and it's $111. 111, special angel number for you guys.
Thank you so much, Cailin. Have a wonderful 2022. You just did a horoscope for yourself, for your rising.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Lada. It was such a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and wishing all of you the best for 2022.
Thank you. And anyone who joined the slide or who is watching this video after that,